My paper is on advent of wrathful deities in Buddhism and their role in religious syncretism. So when we talk about the wrathful deities, I'm referring to the ferocious deities that came into Buddhist art and with the advent of Vajrayana. Now, when we talk about Vajrayana form of Buddhism, normally what we think about it is that it is a form of esoteric form of Buddhism with a lot of tantric practices, and it's just meant for a close group of people. But when we see the material evidences of Vajrayana from different monasteries of Orissa or the places where it is practiced, we can see that it's esoteric. Yeah, we have evidences of tantric images and secret chambers and knowledge of mandalas. But at the same time, we also have evidences of this form of religion being a exoteric one. That means that they had some specialized deities, like how in Hinduism we have Saraswati for knowledge. There in Buddhism they have Maitreya, and like Kubera, his counterpart is Jambala, and so on. So they have this specialized deities, and there are evidences for the veneration of this type of deities that we get from the sites or from the sculptures in the form of sandalwood paste and all that. And apart from this, we have votive stupas, amulets, and dharanis, which are used for protection. So all these show that Vajrayana was not just an esoteric form of Buddhism, but it also was intended for the popular people, or to attract the popular, the common masses to the religion. So, and to fulfill what all their wishes are, they provided special deities for these purposes. And this must have been because that during the advent of Vajrayana and during that time, it had to coexist in a multi-religious landscape. And for this, to exist in such a, with all the religions together, so they had to attract more followers to make it a popular religion. And to attract more followers, some of the things that can be done is to accommodate some popular traits of other religion, or to make their religion look superior by showcasing the others in an inferior manner. And for this, the Buddhists also did many innovations in their religion to attract more people into their fold. So this is where the wrathful deities come into the Buddhist art. So normally when we talk about Buddhism, it is known as a religion of compassion and peace and all that. So where did this, we have to think how this wrathful deities came into the Buddhist art. So there are basically two different opinions regarding the nature of these wrathful deities. So one is that they are the form like the Ayudha Purushas of Hindu art or Hindu religion, like how the Vishnu, the Ayudhas of Vishnu is represented like Gada Devi and Chakra Purusha. And the other one is that it's like the Ganas, which is to remove the vignas or obstacles that come in the path and to listen to whatever the Lord tells him or to commands him. So when we look at this sculpture, this is from Ratnagiri, we can see that this is a form of wrathful deity. He is Hayagriva, is an attendant deity to the Padmapani. And here we can clearly see that it's in a attendant pose. It's like ready to receive orders from this Lord. So we can say that you can say that all the attributes are there it's already on the hands of the deity. So this particular deity, it's more like a Gana. And we get examples to this as in the form from scriptures as well. So in the Mahavairocana Abhisambodhi Sutra, it is mentioned that about a deity called Achala. Now this Achala, you can see this form in this picture here. He's as an attendant deity to Vairocana. And this particular sculpture is from Ratnagiri, temple number 4. So this has reference to Vairocana Abhisambodhi Sutra. And here he is represented as an attendant, and he is described as a servant of the Tathagata. And he should be invoked in the very beginning so that he can ward off any type of obstacles that can come in between this sadhana. And his duties of this particular deity included gathering audience for the preaching of the Bodhisattva or the Buddha and removing obstacles of different forms. The same thing is mentioned in Arya Manjushri Mulakalpa. And here the main deity is Manjushri and his attendant deity is Yamantaka. And Yamantaka is commanded by Manjushri to assemble all the beings by his magical powers. And he is also addressed as Grand Slayer of Vignas by Manjushri. So all these show that they have more in common to the Ganas and not the Ayudha Purushas of Hinduism. Now, when we look into the sculptural art, or the scriptures, and even the scriptures, we can see that these wrathful deities, their career did not end as just by being an attendant deity to a bodhisattva. They had different stages in their career. And in the first stage, they were represented as attendant deities, like how we can see in this sculpture. And in the second stage of their career, they were depicted as independent. And they rose to about independent deity and with more powers and more attributes, and they had their own powers, and they could do things on their own. And in the third stage, some of these deities just got the power of being dharmapalas or protectors, and some of them became more powerful, and they were even identified as the highest Buddha or the highest central deity in the mandala, most powerful deity. So when we talk about the attendant deities, like the first stage, these are just to show how different images and sculptures that we find from different sites of Orissa. There are many sculptures. I've just kept a few for reference. So this particular this thing is from Lalitgiri. Here we can see Hayagriva. Sorry. And here, this is from Ratnagiri. Here also you can see the attendant deity. And this is from Udaygiri. So here also you can see the attendant deity. So he is known as Hayagriva. Padmapani's attendant deity is known as Hayagriva. And next is Manjushri. Manjushri, the attendant deity, is known as Yamantaka. And we have seen earlier what the duties of Yamantaka are. And about Vajrapani, he also had an attendant deity, and his name is Mahabala. Now, these are also from Ratnagiri, and this is from Lalitgiri. This is again from Ratnagiri, and this is from a site called Vajragiri in Orissa. And now another thing we can see is that Manjushri's coifer, you can see Jada Mukuta here. And when it comes to this image, this shows a different type of coifer. It's called a Shikhandaka Kaka Paksha coifer. And this is peculiar of the Kartikeya images of Orissa. So this is also an adaptation from that form of, that sculpture. So now we have seen that these function of these attendant deities, that is to removal of vignas, and these representations of such type of deities are mainly restricted to Kriya and Charitatras. They are the lower form of Vajrayana Buddhism. The second stage of the career, they are depicted as independent deities. So Achala is an example of such a deity, and now they are more powerful and are accommodated in mandalas. Their duties are again conversion to Buddhism, then aversion of misfortune, destruction of obstacles, and such type of deities are linked to the Yoga Tantras. And regarding the attributes of these gods, also they have specific functions. So here we can see that the pasha, this is a rope that is carried by the god, and this is a sword. This is to cut the obstacles, and this pasha is to bind the enemies who cause sufferings to humanity. And the enemies here are identified as the Hindu gods Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma, and they are being terrified by the Tajani Mudra displayed by the god. So we can see that in the second stage, we have other gods like Hayagriva. This is an Avalokiteshvara image. The pedestal has an image of Hayagriva. So by this time, you can see that a specific mount is also given to the deity. So he's becoming more powerful. Like Hindu gods, they are given a mount, then attributes. So it means their status has increased. This is also this is the next stage of Yamantaka. Uh, Here also he becomes more powerful and becomes an independent deity and is worshipped as an independent god. So in Nalanda, this particular image is from Ratnagiri, and this is from Nalanda. Now, why I have taken this picture is that by this time, sadhanas were specially written for this type of deities. So in one of the sadhanas, this Yamantaka is described as having 6 faces, 6 heads, and 6 legs. So this is a rare image where the sadhana is actually followed while making this sculpture. You can see that this deity is represented by 6 legs along with 6 faces. This is from Nalanda and this is from Ratnagiri. And as the name suggests, the deity's name is Yamantaka, and Yamantaka is like the Antak of Yama, and he is given the same cognizance as that of Mount as that of Yama, that is a name. And here the difference is that he is killing Yama in the sense Buddhists think that the ultimate enlightenment that they need is the removal of, they have to get out of the cycle of birth. So this deity helps the people in attaining that condition to get enlightenment. And now in the final phase of this development, now these deities become more powerful. They are identified as a central deity in a mandala, and they represent the power by which an adept is transformed into an enlightened being. So this time they become more powerful, these type of deities. And Heruka and Samvara are examples to this final phase of development in the career of the wrathful deities. And these they are linked to the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. Now, Heruka is basically the what do you call it? It's a representation of the Buddhist theory of Shunya. He's an embodiment of Shunya, and he destroys delusion, which keeps the sentient beings from realizing that there is no being who is not enlightened. And this has roots. This is mentioned in Hevajra Tantra. So his basic duty is to help a person to get enlightenment, and he removes the inner vigna or obstacle to enlightenment, and helps a meditator who is meditating on this particular deity to attain nirvana. And here we can see that again the attributes, these are similar to the Kapalika type of this thing. It is standing on a corpse, which is described as ego, which should be conquered. And this danda is called Khatwanga, and it has a skull cap on top of it. And he holds the Vajra and Khanda. And this is also an adaptation from the Hindu iconographic thing, from the Shaivite iconography. Then now this is the most important deity in Buddhism, or this form of wrathful deity, which we can see as accepted. This form is known as Samvara. And Samvara is, if you can see that he holds if you consider all the attributes of this deity, you have the principal hands in Vajra and holding the Vajra and Vajra Khanda. And the second pair of hand, it holds the hide of elephant skin. The right hands, they have Damru, Parashu, Kartri, Trishula, and the left hand holds Khatwanga, Kapala, Vajrapasha, and severed head. Now we can see that all the attributes are that of Shiva. Almost all the attributes are that of Shiva. And some scholars, they tend to identify this form of Buddha as Shiva in Buddha's disguise. And it's true to some extent because iconographically looks similar. you have this Chandra Tilaka on this forehead and things like that. But the Buddhist philosophy is that they consider Maheshwara as the highest level to which a person can go as far as his ego and passions are concerned. So you have to conquer this, and in order to conquer, you have to conquer this deity and make him subordinate so that this thing can be controlled. And based on that, after controlling and subjugating this deity, the god takes up all his attributes and he converts it into the tools with which he can help man to appear, get enlightenment. That is the theory behind this creation of this god. So here, the Chandra Tilaka of the Chandra of this Shiva is described as what you call it, increasing the Bodhichitta. And here you have the Prabhavali, which is the power of knowledge, and things like that. And here, this Khatwanga is and Kartari. It's used to cut off the fetters of the chain of life and death. And Kapala, usually see it as a cup of collecting blood, but this is to collect all the what you call dukhas of the people, and to give to assimilate and neutralize the afflictions that people have. And these two bodies, these are usually said as that of Bhairava and Kalarati. And these are lying separate to show that we are always in a separate plane. And they show that nothing is permanent in this world. So this is a proper thing of syncretic image where you have all the attributes of Shiva, but the deity is Buddhist. And this is how the Buddhists actually took up the attributes and converted it into their own needs and or their own explanation to show that how their religion is superior to Hinduism during that period. And usually these deities who takes up the appearance of the divinities whom they conquer, and that is why we have this attributes of Maheshwara in the hand of Samvara. So this is it. Thank you.